When my alien maid asked me to peek, I couldn't refuse. On Titan, Saturn's icy moon, the human colony hummed with life. Towering rigs drilled into the frozen surface, pulling up methane and rare metals to fuel humanity's push into the stars. Shuttles darted between platforms, their engines glowing against the dark, swirling clouds of the planet above. It was a marvel of human grit, a testament to what people could build in the harshest corners of space. But for Leo, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and tired eyes, it was just home. He lived in a small apartment tucked into the colony's lower levels, surrounded by the constant rumble of machinery. His days were long, spent fixing mining drones that broke down faster than he could repair them. His nights were short, filled with instant meals and the flicker of a cracked holoscreen. His place was a mess. Tools scattered across the floor, empty food packs piled in corners, and drone parts spilling off his workbench. He barely noticed anymore. But one evening, staring at the chaos, he realized he couldn't keep up alone. Leo wasn't one for asking for help. He'd grown up fixing things himself, relying on his own hands and a stubborn streak that kept him going. But the work was piling up, and his focus was slipping. So, with a sigh, he tapped out an ad on the colony's network. Helper wanted. Basic cleaning, organizing. Long hours, decent pay. No fuss. He didn't expect much. Maybe a bored miner looking for extra cash. 3 days later, a reply pinged his comms. The message was short. I'm Kalia. I'll take the job. Arriving tomorrow. No details, no questions. Just a name that didn't sound human. Leo frowned but shrugged it off. Titan was a melting pot. Humans worked alongside a handful of alien traders and laborers. He figured Kalia was one of them. Maybe a drifter needing a gig. The next day, a knock rattled his door. Leo opened it, and his jaw dropped. Standing there was no human, but an alien unlike any he'd seen. Kalia was tall, her skin a shimmering silver that caught the dim light like liquid metal. Her eyes were wide and green, glowing faintly, and her hair, or what looked like hair, flowed in thin wispy strands that moved as if underwater. She wore a simple tunic, but it clung to her in a way that made Leo blink twice. A small bag hung over her shoulder, and she tilted her head, studying him with a curious smile. "You're Leo?" she asked, her voice soft but clear, with a strange lilt that made his name sound new. He nodded, still staring. Yeah, you're Kalia." She stepped inside without waiting for an invite, her eyes darting around his cluttered space. "This is interesting," she said, her smile widening. "Lots to do." Leo scratched his head, unsure what to make of her. She was from the Vorn, she explained, a species known for their sharp minds and love of puzzles. They'd been allies with humans for decades, trading tech and knowledge. But Leo had never met one up close. Kalia didn't seem bothered by his staring. She set her bag down and started picking up tools, her long fingers moving with a grace that didn't match the messy room. "I'll start here," she said, already stacking drone parts like she knew where they belonged. Leo watched, half amazed, half confused. She didn't ask questions or need instructions, just worked, humming a tune he couldn't place. Within hours, the apartment looked better. Not perfect, but organized in a way Leo hadn't managed in years. Over the next few days, Kalia became a quiet fixture in his life. She'd show up each morning, her silver skin glinting under the harsh lights, and get to work. She didn't just clean. She fixed things. A flickering lamp. Rewired. A jammed drawer. Smooth as new. Leo caught himself watching her more than he meant to. There was something about her, how she moved, how she seemed to enjoy the chaos of his world. One afternoon, she bent over to grab a wrench, her tunic shifting just enough to show the curve of her back. Leo looked away fast, cheeks warm, but Kalia glanced up with a sly grin. "You peek a lot," she said, her tone teasing. He stammered. I don't mean to." She laughed, a sound like chimes. It's fine. I like it. Leo didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't used to anyone noticing him, let alone an alien who seemed to enjoy his awkwardness. But Kalia wasn't just playful, she was smart. She'd linger near his workbench, watching him tinker with drone circuits, her green eyes bright with questions she didn't ask. It made him uneasy, but also curious. Who was she, really? Why pick his messy life to step into? That night, as she poured them both a drink, some fizzy Vorn brew she'd brought, Leo finally asked, "Why'd you take this job? You don't seem like someone who needs it." Kalia sat across from him, her glow dimming slightly as she thought. "I'm here to learn," she said simply. "About humans. About you." Leo blinked. "Me?" She nodded, her smile mysterious. "You're more interesting than you think." Before he could press her, a faint hum filled the air. Not the usual drone noise, but something deeper, stranger. Kalia's eyes narrowed, her head tilting like she'd heard it too. "What's that?" Leo asked, standing. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the window where Titan's stormy sky churned. "Something's coming," she murmured. Leo's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You'll see." And with that, she sipped her drink, leaving Leo staring into the dark, wondering what he'd let into his world. The hum from the night before lingered in Leo's mind as he trudged through Titan's lower corridors the next morning. The colony was alive with its usual chaos. Miners shouting over the clank of rigs, engineers barking orders, and the distant roar of shuttles lifting off. Leo's hands were already itching to get back to his drones, but his thoughts kept drifting to Kalia. Her words, "Something's coming," had stuck with him, a puzzle he couldn't solve. She'd brushed it off after, finishing her drink, and tidying up like nothing was wrong, but her eyes had stayed sharp, watchful. Leo wasn't sure what to make of her. She was an alien, sure, but there was more to her than the silver skin and teasing smiles. She moved through his world like she belonged, yet she carried a quiet mystery that made him feel both drawn in and on edge. Back at his apartment that evening, Kalia was already there, her presence as steady as the hum of the colony's generators. She'd taken to showing up before he did, slipping in with a spare key he'd grudgingly given her. The place looked better every day. Tools sorted, floors cleared, even the holoscreen fixed and glowing brighter than ever. Tonight, she was at his workbench, a drone's control panel open in front of her. Her long fingers danced over the circuits, tweaking wires with a precision that made Leo pause in the doorway. "What are you doing?" he asked, dropping his bag. Kalia didn't look up, just kept working. "Fixing it," she said simply. It was slow. "Now it won't be." Leo stepped closer, peering over her shoulder. The drone's core, an intricate mess of chips and relays, looked different, cleaner somehow, like she'd unraveled a knot he'd never noticed. He frowned. "I've been working on that one for weeks." "How'd you?" She cut him off with a grin, finally meeting his eyes. "You humans are clever, but you miss things. I see them." Her tone was light, but there was a spark in her green gaze that made Leo's stomach twist. He wasn't sure if she was joking or testing him. "What do you mean, miss things?" He pressed, crossing his arms. Kalia stood, brushing her hands on her tunic, which shifted just enough to catch his eye again. She noticed. Of course she did, and her smile turned sly. "You build machines to last," she said, "but not to grow. I made it better." Leo glanced at the drone, then back at her. "Better how?" She didn't answer, just powered it on. The drone hummed to life, faster and smoother than he'd ever managed. He stared, half impressed, half wary. That night, they sat together over another round of her fizzy Vorn brew. The apartment felt warmer with her there, less like a cave and more like a home. But Leo couldn't shake his questions. "Why are you so interested in my work?" he asked, leaning forward. Kalia sipped her drink, her glow dimming as she thought. "Your drones, they're like you," she said. "Simple, but strong. I want to know how you think, how you make things. Her words were earnest, but they stirred a flicker of doubt in Leo. Was she just curious, or was there more? You're studying me, he said, half a question. She nodded, unashamed. Yes, humans are different. I like different. Her eyes locked on his, and for a moment, he forgot to breathe. There was something in her look, playful, yes, but also deep, like she saw more than he wanted her to. The next few days blurred into a strange routine. Kalia kept tinkering, fixing a comms unit one day, boosting a scanner the next. Leo watched her more than he admitted, caught by the way her hands moved, quick and sure, or how her skin shimmered when she laughed. She'd catch him looking, always, and throw back a grin that left him fumbling for words. But her questions grew sharper too. Why do you use old circuits? She'd ask, or what's this drone for? Leo answered at first, proud to explain his work, but her focus on the drones started to nag at him. They weren't just tools. They were the colony's lifeline, pulling resources from Titan's crust. If she was studying them, why? Was she a spy? The thought felt ridiculous, but it lingered. One night, it came to a head. Leo got home late, exhausted from a double shift, and found Kalia at his workbench again. This time, she pulled apart a drone's navigation core, his latest project, one he hadn't even finished. Hey, he snapped, striding over. That's off limits. Kalia looked up, surprised, but didn't back off. I was helping, she said, holding up a sleek, glowing chip she'd added. This will make it fly smarter. Leo's temper flared. I didn't ask you to. That's my work. Mine. She stood, her height suddenly imposing, but her voice stayed calm. You're good, Leo, but you could be great. I'm testing you. He blinked, caught off guard. Testing me. She nodded, stepping closer. Humans push limits. I want to see how far you go. Before he could argue, a sharp crackle cut through the room. The lights flickered, and a low rumble shook the floor. Not the usual rig noise, but something wrong. Leo's comms buzzed with static. Then a voice broke through. All hands, report. Systems down across Sector 3. He grabbed his gear, heart racing, but Kalia was already at the window, staring into the dark. It's here, she said, her glow fading to a dull sheen. What's here? Leo demanded, pulling on his jacket. She turned, her expression grim. Something I hoped wouldn't find us. The comms crackled again, louder, panicked. Drones offline. Oxygen pumps failing. Leo froze, the weight of it hitting him. The colony was in trouble, and Kalia knew more than she'd let on. He grabbed her arm, his voice firm. Tell me what's happening. Now. Kalia met his gaze, her eyes steady despite the chaos outside. It's not your machines, she said. It's them. They're jealous of you, of humans. Leo's mind raced. Who? She pulled free, her tone urgent. The Druin. They've been watching. And they don't like what they see. The rumble grew louder, and a shadow passed over the window. Too big, too fast to be a shuttle. Leo's gut twisted. Whatever was out there, it wasn't friendly. And Kalia, his strange, curious maid, was the only one who seemed to understand it. The shadow outside Leo's window lingered just long enough to send a chill down his spine. The colony's lights flickered again, casting jagged patterns across the room as the rumble grew into a steady, menacing drone. Leo stood frozen, his hand still hovering where he'd grabbed Kalia's arm. Her words, the Druin, jealous of humans, echoed in his head, a warning he didn't fully grasp but felt in his bones. The comms unit on his wrist buzzed with frantic voices. Pumps down in Sector 2. Drones aren't responding. What's happening up there? The colony was unraveling, and Leo knew every second counted. He turned to Kalia, her silver skin dulled under the stuttering lights, her green eyes wide but focused. You know what's out there, he said, his voice tight. Tell me everything. Kalia stepped back, her hands flexing as if she wanted to move, to act. But she held herself still. "The Druin," she began, her tone low and steady, "are old enemies of my people, the Vorn. They're scavengers, smart, ruthless, and they hate anyone who builds what they can't. When humans came to Titan, digging, growing, they noticed. They'd been watching from the edges, waiting." Leo's mind raced. Waiting for what? She met his gaze, unflinching. "To take it. Your drones, your rigs. They'd want them. And they'll break everything to get it." The comms crackled again, a miner's voice cutting through. "Oxygen levels dropping. We've got hours, maybe less." Leo swore under his breath. The pumps kept the colony alive, pulling air from Titan's thin atmosphere. If they failed, everyone failed. He didn't have time to doubt her. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" he demanded, grabbing his toolkit. Kalia followed him to the workbench, her steps quick and silent. "I didn't know they'd come so fast," she admitted. "I thought I could learn from you first, see if humans were worth helping." Leo paused, a wrench halfway to his hand. "Worth helping?" She nodded, her expression softening. "The Vorn don't fight for just anyone. But you're different. Stubborn. Clever. I stayed because of that." Her words hit him hard, a mix of pride and pressure he didn't have time to unpack. The colony needed him now, and whatever Kalia knew, she was part of this too. They bolted out of the apartment, the corridors a mess of running workers and flashing alarms. Leo led the way to the drone bay, a massive hangar where the machines sat lifeless, their lights dark. Engineers scrambled around, shouting over each other, but no one had answers. Leo knelt by the nearest drone, prying open its panel. The circuits were fried, not broken, but scrambled, like something had hit them with a pulse. "This isn't a malfunction," he muttered. "It's sabotage." Kalia crouched beside him, her fingers brushing the melted wires. "Druin tech," she said. "They use disruptors, silent, fast. They're already here." Leo's stomach dropped. "Here, in the colony." She nodded, pointing to the ceiling. "Above us, hiding in the storms." He didn't waste time asking how she knew. The drones were his lifeline, humanity's lifeline, and he wasn't letting them go without a fight. "Can we fix them?" he asked, already pulling tools from his belt. Kalia hesitated, then reached into her bag, pulling out a small glowing device. "This is Vorn tech," she said. "It can override the damage, make them stronger, but you'll have to trust me." Leo stared at the device, then at her. He didn't like handing over control, but the colony was suffocating. "Do it," he said. She smiled, a quick, fierce flash, and got to work, sensing her device to the drone's core. It hummed back to life, faster and sharper than before, its lights blazing. Word spread fast. Within minutes, Leo had a crew of engineers around him, copying Kalia's fix across the fleet. She moved between them, guiding with a calm that steadied the panic. Leo watched her, amazed at how she fit into the chaos, her hands as sure as his own. But he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on them, something waiting in the dark. As the last drone powered up, a sharp jolt rocked the bay. Metal groaned, and a crack split the ceiling, letting in a gust of Titan's freezing air. Workers screamed, scattering as shadows dropped through the gap. Tall, wiry figures cloaked in black, their eyes glowing red. The Druin. Leo grabbed a wrench, instincts kicking in, but Kalia was faster. She leaped forward, her silver body a blur, and tackled the nearest one. It snarled, swinging a jagged blade, but she dodged with a grace that left Leo staring. "Get the drones up," she shouted, pinning the creature down. "They'll stop this." He didn't argue. He rallied the crew, barking orders as the drones lifted off, their upgraded systems locking onto the intruders. Beams of light cut through the air, not weapons, but scanners repurposed to blind and disorient. The Druin hissed, retreating under the assault, but more poured in, their disruptors sparking as they targeted the pumps. Leo's heart pounded. The drones were holding, but barely. He grabbed Kalia as she shoved another drone back. "We can't just defend," he said. "We need to hit them where they're hiding." She nodded, catching her breath. "Their ship, it's cloaked in the storm. If we find it, we end this." Leo grinned, a wild spark lighting in him. "Then let's find it." He turned to the crew, pointing at the strongest drones. "Load these with trackers. We're taking the fight to them." The workers hesitated, then moved, fueled by his certainty. Kalia watched him, her glow brightening. "You're crazy," she said, almost proud. "Good crazy." They launched the drones into the storm, their signals cutting through the interference. Leo and Kalia stood at the bay's edge, wind whipping around them, tracking the feeds on a portable screen. The Druin fought back, their disruptors flaring, but the Vorn upgrades held. A blip appeared, a faint outline in the clouds. "There," Kalia pointed. "Their ship." Leo clenched his fists. "Can we reach it?" She grabbed his hand, her touch warm against the cold. "Together, yes." Before he could respond, a deafening roar shook the colony. The ceiling buckled, and a massive Druin craft uncloaked above, its hull bristling with weapons. Red eyes glared down, locking onto them. Leo's breath caught. They'd found the enemy, and the enemy had found them. The Druin ship loomed above the colony, a jagged silhouette against Titan's stormy sky. Its hull pulsed with a sickly green glow, and the air thrummed with the low growl of its engines. Leo stood at the edge of the drone bay, wind tearing at his jacket, his eyes fixed on the threat. The screen in his hand flickered as the tracker drones fought through the storm, their signals pinpointing the enemy craft. Beside him, Kalia's silver skin shone bright, her green eyes fierce with determination. The colony's alarms blared, a constant wail over the shouts of workers scrambling to seal breaches and restart the pumps. Oxygen levels were critical. Leo could feel the thinness in every breath. But he wasn't backing down. The Druin had come for his home, his people, and he'd make them regret it. Kalia squeezed his hand, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We hit them now, or they'll tear this place apart." Leo nodded, his mind racing. The drones were ready, their Vorn upgraded systems humming with power, but they weren't built for war. He'd have to outsmart the Druin, not outgun them. "What can they do?" he asked, pointing at the fleet hovering behind them. Kalia's lips curved into a sharp smile. "More than you think. I tweaked their scanners, turned them up, and they'll overload anything in range." Leo's eyes widened, like a pulse. She nodded. "Exactly. Get them close, and they'll burn out that ship's systems." It was a long shot, but long shots were all he had. He turned to the crew, their faces pale but set with the same stubborn grit he felt. "Load every drone we've got," he shouted. "We're taking them down from the inside." The workers moved fast, strapping extra power cells to the machines, boosting their range. Leo and Kalia worked side by side, sensing the trackers to guide them through the storm. The Druin ship fired, a crackling beam that gouged the bay's floor, sending sparks flying. Leo ducked, pulling Kalia with him, but she was already up, her hands steady on the controls. "They're scared," she said, her voice fierce. "They didn't expect you to fight back." Leo grinned despite the chaos. "They don't know humans." The drones launched, a swarm of glowing lights cutting through the wind and ice. Leo watched the screen, guiding them with quick taps, weaving them past the Druin's defenses. The enemy ship loomed closer, its weapons flaring, but the drones were small, fast, too nimble to hit. Kalia adjusted their scanners, her fingers a blur, and Leo felt a surge of pride. She wasn't just helping, she was part of this, as much as he was. The first wave reached the ship, their signals spiking as they unleashed the pulse. A ripple of light burst across the hull, and the Druin's weapons faltered, their green glow dimming. "It's working," Leo yelled. pumping a fist. But the ship didn't fall. Not yet. It turned, sluggish but still dangerous, and a hatch opened, spilling more of the red-eyed figures onto the colony's roof. Leo swore, grabbing a heavy wrench. "They're boarding us." Kalia's glow flared, and she pulled a slim rod from her bag, a Vorn weapon, sleek and humming. "Then we stopped them here." They ran to the bay's upper level, joining a handful of miners armed with tools and grit. The Druin landed hard, their wiry frames moving with eerie speed, but Leo's crew met them head-on. He swung his wrench, catching one in the chest, sending it sprawling. Kalia danced through the fight, her rod flashing as it stunned the invaders, her movements fluid and fearless. "Keep them off the pumps." Leo roared, rallying the others. The workers fought like they'd been born for it, raw, messy, but unbreakable. Above, the drones pressed their attack. Leo stole glances at the screen, shouting coordinates to the crew still at the controls. The second wave hit, and the ship's hull sparked, chunks of metal peeling away. The Druin faltered, their red eyes darting between the drones and the humans below. Kalia grabbed Leo's arm, pulling him back as a beam scorched the spot where he'd stood. "They're losing," she said, breathless. "But they'll take us with them if we don't finish it." Leo nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "One more push, all we've got." He signaled the crew, and the final drones surged forward, their scanners maxed out, a blinding wave of energy crashing into the ship. The explosion was silent at first, a bloom of light that swallowed the storm. Then a shockwave rocked the colony, rattling every bolt and beam. The Druin ship listed, its engines dead, and began to drift, a broken husk caught in Titan's pull. The invaders on the roof froze, then scattered, leaping into the dark as their ride abandoned them. Leo's chest heaved, his ears ringing, but he couldn't stop the grin spreading across his face. They'd done it. The crew cheered, ragged and triumphant, clapping each other on the back. Kalia lowered her weapon, her glow softening as she caught her breath. "You're insane," she said, but her eyes sparkled with something like awe. The colony wasn't out of danger yet. Pumps needed restarting, breaches needed sealing, but the immediate threat was gone. Leo and Kalia worked through the night, side by side, getting the drones back to their real job, keeping everyone alive. As dawn broke, a faint orange glow tinting Titan's horizon, the air stabilized, and the alarms finally silenced. Leo slumped against a wall, exhausted but buzzing with a strange energy. Kalia sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his. "You didn't give up," she said quietly, "even when it looked impossible." He shrugged, too tired to hide his pride. "That's humans for you. We don't know when to quit." She laughed, a soft chime that warmed the cold air. "I think I'll stay," she said, her tone firm. "There's more to learn here, more to see." Leo turned to her, surprised. "You don't have to. You've done enough." She shook her head, her green eyes locking on his. "I want to. You're worth it." Her words settled over him, simple but heavy, and he felt something shift. A bond forged in the heat of battle, stronger than he'd expected. He didn't argue, just nodded, a quiet agreement passing between them. Days later, the colony buzzed with stories of the fight, how a mechanic and an alien maid turned the tide. Leo went back to his drones, Kalia at his side, her tweaks making them better than ever. The Druin were gone, but the stars still stretched out above, full of threats and wonders. Leo didn't mind. With Kalia there, he felt ready for anything. They'd stand together, human and Vorn, a team no one could break. As he watched her tinker one evening, her silver hands flashing over a circuit, she caught him looking and winked. "Still peeking," she teased. He laughed, unashamed. Always. And in that moment, with Titan storms raging outside, Leo knew they'd write their own story, one worth telling, one that wouldn't end.